Irina Zarutska came to the United States searching for safety. She had left Ukraine with the hope of rebuilding her life far away from the war that had stolen her sense of security. Friends described her as soft-spoken, hard-working, and full of dreams that she was finally starting to act on. She found small jobs, formed new friendships, and began to imagine a future that felt stable for the first time in a long time. Charlotte, North Carolina, was never meant to be permanent for her. It was simply a place where she could work, save, and decide what her next step would be. She lived quietly, focusing on her job at a local pizzeria and taking classes to improve her English. People around her said she had a warm way of smiling through her struggles, as if she still believed in the possibility of better days. On August 22, 2025, she boarded the Lightrail train along the city's Blue Line after finishing her shift. It was an ordinary evening for her, the kind she had experienced plenty of times. She sat down, pulled out her phone, and prepared for a short ride. She wasn't expecting anything unusual. She wasn't expecting danger. She was simply heading home. Surveillance footage later, released by officials, shows a man boarding at the same station and sitting just a row behind her. At that moment, nothing about the scene signaled trouble. Other passengers were scattered throughout the train, and everything looked normal. But within minutes, something unimaginable happened, an attack so sudden and unexpected that the entire city struggled to understand it. Authorities described the incident as unprovoked. There had been no words exchanged, no interaction between them, no build-up. Just a shocking act that ended Irina's life in a place where she should have been safe. Panic rippled through the train as passengers rushed to call for help, but by the time emergency responders arrived, her injuries were too severe to reverse. The suspect, a 34-year-old man named Carlos Brown Jr., was detained at the next station. Reports showed that he had a history of previous arrests and documented mental health struggles. But the speed and randomness of what happened left investigators, passengers, and the public searching for answers that didn't come easily. The tragedy immediately sparked national attention. The story of a young Ukrainian refugee, someone who fled danger only to encounter it again in the place she believed would protect her, struck a deep emotional chord. Ukraine's own community in the U.S. expressed shock and grief. People who had never met her mourned as if they had known her personally. In Charlotte, the incident quickly grew into something bigger than a single case. It raised questions about safety on public transportation, particularly on routes that many rely on daily. It raised questions about mental health systems, treatment access, and how easily individuals with long histories can slip through the cracks. And it raised questions about vulnerability, about how people coming from difficult backgrounds can still face unexpected threats no matter how far they travel. Public reaction grew rapidly. Some focused on policy discussions about transit security, demanding better monitoring and emergency protocols. Others debated failures in the mental health system and whether more could have been done to prevent individuals with recurring issues from becoming dangerous. Community members held gatherings and vigils for Irina, honoring her memory with candles, photos, and messages written in English and Ukrainian. The conversations surrounding the case sometimes turned heated. Media outlets and commentators disagreed on what should be emphasized and why. Some focused on immigration, some on crime, some on mental illness, and others argued that political framing was overshadowing the real story, an innocent woman who deserved protection, compassion, and justice. Meanwhile, investigators continued piecing together the timeline. They reviewed footage, reconstructed the suspect's movements, and analyzed what might have led to such an unpredictable act. But what stood out most to officials was the lack of any connection between Irina and the man who attacked her. There was no relationship, no argument, and no warning. It emphasized how fragile safety can be, even in public places surrounded by people. Her friends and coworkers shared stories about her life, filling in the details beyond the headlines. They talked about how she always helped new employees at work, even when she barely understood the language herself. They talked about how she sent money back home to support her family. They talked about her plans to build a future in technology or healthcare, careers she had been considering before the tragedy stopped her journey abruptly. Ukrainian community leaders in the U.S. described her death as symbolic of a deeper heartbreak. She survived the chaos of war only for her life to be taken in a peaceful city far from the front lines. It reminded many refugees of the emotional weight they carry, the hope for safety mixed with the fear that danger can still follow them in unexpected ways. As the legal process moved forward, the suspect faced both state and federal charges. Federal prosecutors stepped in because the attack occurred on a public transportation system covered under specific laws meant to protect passengers. The case began to take shape as one that would likely stretch on for months, possibly years. Court hearings, competency evaluations, and legal motions would determine how the case unfolded, but none of it could reverse the grief left behind. Charlotte officials responded by reviewing transit security measures. They reassessed camera placements, emergency alert systems, and personnel training. The city acknowledged that, while no system can prevent every unpredictable act, improvements were necessary. Community advocates pushed for more mental health resources, hoping that addressing systemic gaps could reduce the risk of similar tragedies in the future. Across social media, the story continued circulating as people searched for ways to honor Irina's memory. Artists created portraits of her. Ukrainian groups organized charity funds. Refugee support organizations used her story to highlight the emotional and physical challenges newcomers face even after escaping war zones. For many, she became a symbol not of tragedy alone, but of the resilience and vulnerability that refugees experience worldwide. Irina's life was not defined by her final moments. Those who knew her emphasized that she should be remembered for her courage, her hope, and her determination to build something better for herself. They wanted people to know that she had dreams she was actively working on, that she had survived hardship before, and that she had touched lives even in her short time in the United States. Her story continues to resonate because it raises questions that society still struggles to answer. How do we protect vulnerable people? How do we support individuals with mental health challenges before they become risks to themselves or others? How do we ensure that public spaces remain safe without creating environments of fear? These aren't simple questions, but the tragedy forced them into the spotlight again. Irina's journey from Ukraine to America was meant to be the beginning of a new chapter. Instead, it became a story that touched an entire nation, reminding people of how fragile life is and how much responsibility communities hold in protecting those who seek refuge among them. Her memory continues to inspire discussions about compassion, safety, and the need for stronger systems that prevent tragedies before they happen. Her life mattered, and her story remains a powerful reminder that behind every headline, there is a human being with dreams, fears, hopes, and loved ones waiting for them to come home.